Back in 2010, a UK government minister argued that primary school kids should learn Mandarin and Arabic because those regions would be big future trading partners. Now, almost 15 years later, I've been wondering if that advice still holds. If you or your child had to pick a language to learn today, which of the world's 6,000 languages would future-proof you the most? And more importantly, with tech such as AI and augmented reality glasses making translation more seamless, should you even bother learning a new language? Or is that a waste of time and should we focus on other skills instead? Well, today I'm going to explore those questions, and by the end of the video, you'll perhaps be better able to decide your next steps. If you're new here, welcome to Futureflect. The world's changing really fast and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But here, we calmly reflect on the future together, empowering us to not just survive, but thrive in this world of change. Now let's take a quick look back. Language learning has been a core part of human civilizations for thousands of years. So any tech that tries to change that has a lot of history to overcome. Ancient civilizations like the Greeks and the Romans valued learning multiple languages for trade, diplomacy, and culture. They even had bilingual textbooks to help. Some of the earliest language schools were in 9th century Baghdad, where scholars gathered to learn Arabic, the language of science, and philosophy back then. Fast forward to the 19th and 20th centuries, and we see modern teaching methods emerge. One quirky example I found was from the 19th century, where you had to sort of act out sentences to learn them. On that note, if any of you are 90s kids, let me know if you can translate this in the comments. Okay, let's come back to the present. With easier tech translations, is there less interest in learning languages? Actually, it seems like there's more interest. The language learning market is huge now, worth about $50 billion, and it's predicted to explode to $330 billion by 2032. That's a 20% yearly growth rate. Any company would love that. So what's interesting is this growth is expected both in digital and in offline learning. So tech has made language learning more fun and engaging. Think about playing with Duolingo's OWL or using plugins for dual subtitles on your favorite Netflix show. And look at this stat. Tons of Duolingo learners are under 30, showing that this interest in language learning is thriving and not just the preserve of the elderly. We also seem fascinated and supportive of polyglots who know many languages. There are rising polyglot influencers online with big followings such as Xiaoma or Princess Polyglot. So, what tech is going to be a game changer? Well, for learning, there are already emerging VR apps that make things more interactive and fun. There's things like Immerse.me, where students interact with pre-recorded teachers, and Mondly VR, which helps you practice in places like a virtual restaurant or a post office that make learning more interactive. We've really come a long way from those 9th century Baghdad classrooms. Now, there's already translation apps, but they can sometimes be pretty clunky, where you type something on the phone and then you show it to the other person. But in the recent past, more seamless tools are emerging. For example, real-time translation earbuds, such as the Time Kettle WT Edge. But I think the big game changer will be the proliferation of augmented reality translation. And we don't have to imagine what this will be like. A couple of years ago, Google released this video from a project they're working on, which shows the power of uninterrupted and live, right in the moment seamless transition. Take a quick look.
Taking years of research in Google Translate and bringing that to glasses.
You see me?
Oh, sí te veo.
I'm actually looking straight into your eyes, and it seems like you're looking right at me.
Oh, sí, estoy viendo lo que estás diciendo para allá.
I feel this is a big shift. You can see how it's far less intrusive and more intuitive. None of your key senses are impeded. So whether you are a tourist landing in a new place, or say you're meeting a potential customer in another country, you can see that it helps both sides immensely. Okay, amazing. So let's assume the tech handles it all. Why might we still then want to learn a language? Well, when I spoke about that UK government minister advocating for Mandarin and Arabic, there was a hidden assumption in his argument. Did you spot it? The assumption was that future trade flows and business was the main reason to learn a second language. But I'd contend that economic framing is quite a narrow view of the world, as the data shows there are many other reasons that motivate language learning. For example, a big one is love. People wanting to better connect with their romantic partners. And studies have indicated that if you speak your partner's language, you may be able to understand their emotions better. Some argue it's because words that you hear in a second language don't activate feelings as strongly as words that you hear in your first language. So counterintuitively, you are then able to really listen and process their feelings. In fact, I saw it described as being able to meet the original version of your partner, which is a really poetic way to think about it. A study at the University of Chicago found people often make more rational decisions in their second language, as there's less emotional bias and more logical thinking. And scientific studies also demonstrate health benefits. Learning a second language increases the density of grey matter in the left cortex. And a study showed how being bilingual from a young age could help delay onset of Alzheimer's disease, with symptoms appearing 5 years later for those who are lifelong bilinguals. People who are bilingual are also found to have a greater ability to focus. So it's becoming apparent that the brain is like a muscle, and challenging it with new inputs, such as a new language, is the equivalent of taking it to a mental gym. Now, another big motivator for language learning is it allows you to deepen your connection to a particular culture you may like. And often the first exposure to a culture has come through the form of an entertainment show. So the rise of K-pop and K-dramas has led to a spike in people learning Korean. In fact, in Duolingo's annual report, they said that Korean overtook Italian to become the 6th most popular language to learn. And even in countries you wouldn't necessarily have top of mind, say Algeria, they found that a survey of K-pop followers had started using Korean words and phrases in their daily conversation, even in Algeria. And these needn't be global movements, they can also be deeply personal. For example, I came across a story of an Austrian journalist learning Scottish Gaelic on Duolingo so that she could understand the language in the TV show Outlander. Now, let's say this tech takes off. What signals should we watch to see where things are headed? First, keep an eye on how we use real-time translation. Is it transactional, just for tourists and quick chats? Or is it for serious big business deals too? Secondly, if tech makes it easy, will people still value those who actually learn a language? If you've invested 3 years to actually learn the language, is that extra effort perceived to be valuable by others? Or is your language learning then perceived to be an indulgence in a world where you can just look it up in real time? One way to sanity check this is to see, will employers still pay more for people who have other languages? Keep an eye on governments too. Will they still push language programs in school, or will tech be good enough? At the moment, they are still pushing. The EU has a multilingual policy. They believe that every EU citizen needs to speak at least 2 foreign languages to be competitive. And the Tanzanian government included Mandarin in their national college entrance exams for high school students, showing how integral Mandarin is becoming to many African societies. And finally, even if people still learn languages, tech might change which languages they learn. Could English's dominance fade if we can translate directly between any 2 languages? It's happened before. French, Arabic, Latin, they all had their time. It's similar to the de-dollarization idea, where the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency, but for various geopolitical reasons, it may be at risk of losing that status in future. We'll do a separate video about that idea. So, after all that, let's get back to the big question we posed at the beginning. Should you still bother learning a language if tech can do the talking? Well, as always, I encourage you to form your own conclusions. But personally, I'm convinced that AR translation will make understanding each other in the moment a breeze. And that's fantastic for travel, those quick interactions, or those one-off business meetings. And let's face it, most of us can't become fluent in dozens of languages. So this tech will let us connect with far more people than ever before. However, for deeper connections like building long-term business relationships, conducting research, or truly experiencing another culture's art and literature, there still may be nothing quite like knowing the language yourself. Learning a language feels like empowering, like a superpower. Very few other life skills would bestow this magical gift, which is a gift to open up connections with millions of people. And we've seen it has that broader range of benefits, whether that's on your brain health, your relationships, and your ability to connect with history, culture, and entertainment in ways that may not just be possible through automated translation alone. As globalization continues, it'll likely to be the norm that people will speak at least 2 or 3 languages anyway, so you may not want to be left behind. Now, whether we use tech or our brains, connecting more deeply with each other via language can only be a good thing, particularly in a time of volatility and political challenges. And as we speak to more people from around the world, that may remind us that there's more that unites the human experience than divides us. So I'm left feeling that even if language gets commoditized by tech, that doesn't necessarily mean language itself will become a commodity. And in a world where tech is everywhere, it feels reassuring to know that language would be a way to hold on to something profoundly human, whatever that language might be. तो ये था आज का video, Futureflectors, and do subscribe if you found this helpful. And remember, stay curious to stay ahead.